The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome everyone to today's webinar on 10 ways to convert more orders. I'm Sushant and I'll be your host for today's webinar. We have with us Craig Smith, founder and CEO of Trinity Insights, one of our most valued strategic partners. And Craig would like to tell you a bit about himself. Okay, Craig?
Good afternoon, everybody. Hope everyone is having a great day. My name is Craig Smith. I'm the founder and CEO of Trinity Insight, and we help brands grow web traffic and conversion through optimization. And what we're going to talk about today is some of our favorite experiments that we've selected over the last 12 to 18 months that worked extremely well in driving conversion rates. Now, going through these experiments, talking about the user experience impact that we executed in using Visual Website Optimizer as our software to execute, so you guys get some ideas and some intel on new ways to approach your traffic and to boost your sales. Starting out, I think it's, we definitely want to hear from you guys on Twitter as well as the chat. There's the hashtag ThinkCRO to utilize in your tweets, and please hit us up at VWO and at Trinity Insight. And again, my real focus for today, and to make sure that you get value out of the time you spend here, is to arm you with new ideas to optimize your business, to create new ways to look at your data and look at your design so you can drive new approaches in engineering your web pages so it does better. A little bit about me, quick 15 seconds. I have 16 years of e-commerce experience. I started Trinity Insight back in 2006 after stints at Cigna Corporation and eBay Enterprise. And really our focus is to help brands and retailers optimize by increasing traffic and improving their conversion through testing and personalization. We've been working with VWO since 2009. They've been an invaluable partner for us. We have VWO software installed over 50 brands, and again, utilize that as the main mechanism for us to be able to create change and experiments on our partner sites. All right, so with that, I know we are going to do a poll. So Sushant, why don't you talk about the poll, and I'll go back to actually we'll talk about this data slide in a second, but I know you had a poll you wanted to start.
Thank you so much. Yes, we have a few poll questions that we'd like to run by our audience. But before we do that, a quick note. The slides and video of this particular webinar will be made available to all the registrants and be sent via email to them very soon. Also, do not forget to use the question box in the dashboard that you see, and we'll try to answer as many as we can after Craig is done with his talk. So I'll start right away with the poll questions. You should see question number 1 right now. But these questions are made just to help us know you better. So the first question is, how much experience do you have using conversion rate optimization? You have 4 options. The first being less than 6 months, 6 months to 1 year, 1 to 2 years, and if you've more than 2 years of experience, that's awesome. We'll wait for 5 to 10 more seconds. Yep, that's it. Thank you so much. We'll now move on to the next question. The next question being, what tools you should say now. What tools or technologies have you used for conversion rate optimization? So if you've used any of these technologies, any of these tools, or maybe you might have used more than one of these tools, please select any of the following options. Well, thank you for answering those questions. I'll now close this particular question. The final question that we want to ask is, whether you'd like an offer. You can select for an offer from VWO, from Trinity Insight. You could ask for an offer from both the brands, or you could just not choose for an offer at all. Thank you so much for answering these questions. Craig, we are now done with all the poll questions, and I'll hand it over back to you. Please carry on.
All right, thanks so much. All right, so I hope everyone got to answer those questions, and we're looking forward to seeing the information. But let's dive into some data, some information that I think is important to understand relating to some of the trends and tendency in the industry, the e-commerce and digital industry, so we can really kind of get to some ideas around how you guys can improve your user experiences. And here's a first data point that came out from Javelin Strategy at the end of last year. It showed the progression of sales that are going to mobile in the next 3 years, 3 to 4 years. So if you look at today, or in 2015, 29% of overall e-commerce sales were from mobile. That's going to 49% in 2020. That's a massive shift. If you're not already measuring and looking to optimize the friction areas in your mobile experience, then you got to start. It's clearly a tsunami that's already here and an area that you need to focus on. Now, continuing, some more interesting data that came out from Monetate in 2016 shows when users make purchases by hour, you can see that 42% of e-commerce orders, only 42% happen within the first hour. I mean, the rest distribute over time. So this is important to understand that you need to have your brand utilizing remarketing type of technologies and also be heavily integrated in Google presence to get those folks who get exposure to brand to come back and tune up your attribution so you can make sure you're getting the right exposure to your and ROI calculation in your marketing spend. The next stat shows conversion rate versus different device types, and you can see traditional tablet and smartphone highlighted in red for the United States. You can see conversion rates are going higher. The smartphone rate is going from 1.07 in Q1 2015 to what it reached in 2016, 1.30. So you should be seeing in your overall business conversion in the mobile channel going up, and I would hope it'd be somewhere near this average, 20 to 21.4%. All right, now with that, we've gotten some data out of the way. Let's talk about our top 10 experiments, really kind of the meat of today's webinar. We looked at our experiments for the last 12 months, and we handpicked some of the best ones that really worked well and that drove significant revenue. It's across a variety of UI focal points, split tests, multivariate test, segmentation efforts, modals, and also personalization. But we're going to go into each one of these and really kind of walk through what we did and what the overall impact was. So first is checkout distractions. This is a very easy test for you to implement on your site, but very, very critical. Within your shopping funnel, within the checkout process, we still see brands render their navigation, rendering your category drop-downs, including a plethora of utility links that really at this stage of the game aren't necessary. You already have the user going to order. So in this instance, and you can see the example here that we did with Summit Sports, we were able to re-engineer that top header, eliminate the alternative paths, and increase conversion 17%, again, using VWO. Next is a great tactic for your checkout process, Auto Zip Lookup. It's very important to, where you can, reduce these friction areas. And we were noticing with this client that the form fields we were dropping off significantly using form analytics. We saw the drop off, and we tried to reduce as much work as possible. And one of that is when the user would type in the zip code, we were able to automatically integrate via an API the state and city. The tool that we used was called Zipopotamus, a third-party API, but basically by integrating that into the zip postal code, it completely eliminated the need for the customer to use the downward mechanism to find their city and state as it automatically populated. If you're an e-commerce retailer, this is a great way to reduce an additional step within your checkout process to hopefully improve your performance. Next is checkout boxes. You want to look at your checkout pages and your lead capture pages, and when you can, present a similar look to users what they're used with at Amazon. In this instance, you can see that we reconstructed the page over multiple iterations, experimenting with a variety of creative to create that buy box, to create that focal point, the visual focal point in the checkout page, supported with satisfaction messaging, that was going to make someone more inclined to click on that button. In this instance, the winning variation only increased progression by 4%, but the massive impact to revenue was undeniable as it increased revenue 1 million incremental over a annualized period. All right, next is jump points to checkout, another interesting avenue to test if you're an e-commerce retailer. There's a lot of ways you can do this. You can have someone go right to checkout. You can just make your header dynamically change with the product added and the total changing. In this instance, what we tested was an overlay as the jump point to checkout. Now the question was, what's best? Is the overlay by itself with the product good? Did we want to have recommendations? Did we want you to do it? Does right to the cart work best? So we tried all three, and by far, with a 20% increase to conversion rate, overlaying a jump point to checkout modal without product recommendations worked best for this client. I highly recommend test your own environment and your own best jump point to checkout. Next is filter presentations, and in this filter presentation you can see that on the top was the control, at the bottom was the variation. The top was the old school, fill in the box type mechanism to dynamically change the product catalog and what's being served. What we thought would work better and what did work better was a sticky header where someone would scroll down and those filtering mechanisms would stay consistent and gave the user a much more cleaner and intuitive way to filter. I would suggest to look at your product mix, and if you do have very complex products, if you do have a variety of attributes that users are curious about and want to filter by, measuring and optimizing that component of your business is very, very important. In this case, the key metric win was a 30% lift in category to product page progression from changing that mechanism. Number 6 is cart simplification. In this example, really what we did was just make it less distractions and a clear path with a green button. And by making some slight changes to those very simplified, refocused into a shopper primary path by relieving clutter and the distractions, we were able to get a 20% increase. So, I just talked to someone this morning, in fact, a branded retailer who made a one-word change to a button, which drove a 15% increase to page-level conversion. So there's a lot of quick wins within your site. You just need to be experimenting and optimizing against them. Number 7 is reorder optimization. Now, if you're in the business of products that are going to be reordered due to the fact that they get utilized, let's say in this example this is contact lens, but it could be paper for an office supply company. When you have a customer coming back to your site after they've been to you once before and already purchased, the great way to re-engage them is to utilize ways to understand and recognize that they're back to your brand, and then give them the capability to easily reorder quickly. And you can see at the top, I'm showing at the top those two boxes of the control. That was the standard version. What we did was utilizing VWO, utilizing other types of tools and technologies with JavaScript, we were able to kind of say, hey, are you returning? Reorder now. They click on reorder, and we get them right back to what they ordered last time on the site. And this drove an 8% increase to overall conversion. Next is last mile messaging, and for e-commerce, you've gotten them to the home stretch. They got into the cart, they made it to the checkout, they put in their cart information, and then there's that last push them over the edge, kind of like get them to finalize process, where a lot of folks don't hit up those core questions that users have. Is it secure? Am I guaranteed? When am I going to get the products? Can I return? In this instance, I'm showing you a test that we executed where we're incorporating that new messaging regarding the guaranteed fit, the support, the price, and the shipping, and the Better Business Bureau imagery. By integrating this at the very end of this process, it drove a 9.3% conversion after adding it versus the control. Again, utilizing VWO as the mechanism to deploy this additional creative. Number 9. Look for areas in your site where you may have what I call analysis paralysis. Sometimes you're just asking too much of the user and it's just overload. And what psychologists have found, they see web visitors very much just kind of lose interest because they're just overloaded and they abandon it. We saw this firsthand with an e-commerce retailer in which offering warranty options and other types of enhancements at the product page when they're just looking to add a cart was a major distraction. And by re-engineering it to, again, reduce the analysis paralysis by eliminating the warranty steps in the product page and rendering them later in the experience, post-cart ad with a modal, that was able to impact a 25% increase to the add to cart process, as well as a 27% increase to the overall conversion. And then lastly, an area that everyone should be focusing on is modals, but not just modals and overlays, but making them strategic and personalized. Utilizing clickstream behavior, utilizing classifications if they're a customer or a new visitor, a returning visitor but not a customer, in order to deliver modals that are going to help you in achieving your goals. And this client that we used the VWO system or creative were rendering messaging based upon the clickstream. So if someone was in a certain category, we see they've reached a certain number of page views within that category, we might render a creative that associates with a dynamic promo code that's going to target what they've already been viewing. In this instance, this type of tailored modals were able to generate an 11% overall conversion increase by using the data layer and VWO. All right, so where do you begin? You have some ideas now. There's 10 different processes, especially if you're an e-commerce retailer, but even if you're a lead generation site, to think through and to kind of evaluate with your own experience. But where do you begin? Start with your progression rates. Understand when people come into your site, where are they going? Where are they falling off? What is the progression, the micro conversion of each page to the next? That's critical information. That's going to tell you the squeaky parts of the wheel. That's going to tell you where you need to fix. And then segment that performance with channels. Look at those rates with mobile traffic, for desktop traffic, for search traffic, for branded traffic, for Facebook traffic. From that, the data will tell you where to focus, and then you're going to start thinking, designing, and deploying, and then engineering the creatives and using VWO to deploy effective experiments. I highly recommend use our free tool. This is a user experience conversion calculator that we created on our site. Basically what it does, it enables you to put in your data points of visitors that see the product page, add to cart, checkout progression, etc. And then you can see, okay, if I move the needle from 70% to 82% and all my other rates stay consistent, what is that going to mean for incremental revenue per month? So for large e-commerce brands, this is a great way for you to understand the true dynamic, the economic upside of conversion optimization within your business. All right, so with that, we're going to move to questions. I wanted to make sure that was nice and brief for everybody as everyone's busy, but hopefully we've got some questions from the audience and people got some new ideas of approaches they can take with their e-commerce business using VWO.
Thank you, Craig. Those were some amazing insights, and I'm sure our audiences, I can already see a couple of questions coming in. We'll still take a 2-minute breather, after which we'll start the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please do not forget to keep asking them through the question box. And do fill in your feedback as well. We'll talk again in 2 minutes. All right, we're starting with the question and answer session. We've got quite a few questions coming our way. I'll start with the first question. Craig, this is forwarded towards you. The question is, what was the name of the tool to predict your impact from conversion rates?
That tool is on our website. It's called our Conversion Optimization Calculator. So if you go to trinityinsight.com, you can go to our navigation and you'll find it there. And essentially what it enables is the ability to import your own data and then utilize the sliders to model out economic impact when improving certain progression points at varied degrees.
All right. Next question is from David, who's asked, do you have any suggestions for how to handle something like an exit intent modal on mobile devices, since mobile traffic is becoming increasingly important?
That's a great question, and it's something that you need to really look heavily into, because he may or may not know, or you may or may not know, that Google has come out with messaging around that they're going to be penalizing mobile experiences that do what they call interstitials, which is essentially the same thing. Now, what they're referencing, Google's referencing in the organic search space and penalizing algorithmically, is more for when you just land on a site versus an exit intent. But in doing exit intents and tests with prospects, or excuse me, clients in desktop environments and in mobile environments, I think full interface takeover works best, where you really just kind of completely overlay the viewing pane of the phone with clear ability via a link and via an Xbox to exit out of that. And what my goal would be with that type of approach, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 8% conversion on exits.
Thank you for that. Next question is from one of our users who said, I agree with your point on information overload. Now, are there some red flags that tell me I'm doing it too?
That's a great question. I would, in that case, really first start with usability testing. Now, red flags you could look at would be, number one, your product page to cart rate progression percentage. So if you have 100 people in on a product page, how many unique sessions actually became carts? Is it 50%? Is it 30%? Is it 70%? Obviously, that number is going to dictate how your product page is performing, and information overload could play a part in that. But I also think, as you look at that number, also look at the usability data you can get from some live research. Sometimes we might look at the analytics and they'll tell us what's happening, but it's not telling us why it's happening. So I'd highly recommend to get some video analytics done, to maybe even get some user tests done. Try to get real people to give you feedback onto the questions that you put forth to them in that type of primary research environment. I think the primary research along with the analytical data are both needed to figure out what's the best way to improve your page. But I would start with your product page progression rate, and it should be 2 carts, somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 to 17% is what we typically see in e-commerce.
Well, that's quite an interesting answer. Before I move on to my next question, please allow me to pass just a little feedback to you. One of our audience members has really complimented you on the brief yet concise style of presenting, and maybe doing short webinars is something that we'd like to take up in the future as well, given the awesome feedback that we've received for them. We have one last question before we go, and this question is from Jess, who's asked, what makes VWO a great partner for optimization? I'd love to hear your answer on this.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, and just to let you know, we've been partners with VWO since 7 years now, back to when we first started Conversion, and Paralysis, the CEO, and Nate, my Chief Technology Officer, met and we've had a great experience. What makes it great, I think, is number one, it's very lightweight. When evaluating other platforms in the space, the VWO script is light, and because of that, pages load just as they would without that script being on there. Other platforms, I've seen flickering and I've seen weight of pages increase substantially, and that's something you must consider. Number two, I think the economics for a middle market business, VWO, is very tough to beat, giving you a full featured platform at price points that can enable you to do other things, be it put it in the marketing or even put it into hiring a firm such as mine that will take the car and drive it for you and just kind of help you guide us on the way. So VWO is a fantastic tool, and they're progressive in their roadmap and evaluating where this market's going, utilizing our relationship as a partner with them to help guide that roadmap, and we see nothing but awesome future ahead for VWO and for Trinity in our partnership.
Well, I'd like to add my own 2 cents to this question. Jess, number one, thank you so much for asking this question. In addition to everything that Craig mentioned ever so graciously, I'd also like to tell our audiences that VWO has now progressed into a holistic, full-scale CRO conversion optimization platform with added capabilities. Of course, in the follow-up email that we send to all the registrants, we'll make sure that we include a link to the new landing page, and everyone can give it a shot and let us know your thoughts. Our next question is from Gerardo, who's asked, how do you collect the data about what percentage of users get to which state of the workflow?
Yeah, that's a great question. What we use is Google Analytics and custom segments to really filter out who's going down the purchase path. Now, a lot of this can be done for you in the new Google Analytics enhanced e-commerce. So if you are an e-commerce retailer, you must be on enhanced e-commerce. What that is, it's a new syntax that Google released within the universal analytics code base that enables you to just run more reports, slice and dice the data more effectively, get better intelligence into merchandising data and how products perform within your presentation in, let's say, your carousels or your featured products, those sorts of things. So that's enhanced e-commerce gets a lot of it for you. If you don't have enhanced e-commerce up, you need to run custom segments in Google Analytics and kind of create, and we use a tool called Supermetrics with Google Analytics to kind of give us a hook into Google Sheets where we can create really a bird's eye view at any point in time of how your progression rate is. And again, in e-commerce, there's about 7 or 8. Home to category, category to subcat, subcat to product, product to cart, cart to checkout 1 to checkout 2 to order confirm to order. And you look at them every day and you say, okay, what was it yesterday? What's it today? And then that way you quickly identify and decipher when there's problems in your system, when there's technology glitches, and they do happen, you can quickly identify it versus having to wait for a customer service, complaints that maybe took like 2 to 3 days to bubble up. So that's a great way to approach it using, again, Supermetrics, Google Analytics, and Google Sheets.
Excellent. We have a couple of more questions. I think they're just piling on as we are going deeper into the Q&A session. Madison has asked, how do you evaluate which part of your purchase funnel to concentrate on while using the e-commerce conversion calculator and the site progressions?
How do you evaluate? Okay, so I would look at, number one, it's very difficult to get benchmarks in the industry. You have to look at your own information and kind of recognize your gut. So like I said before, some benchmarks I would use, your conversion in e-commerce, depending on if you're a pure play or if you're an omni-channel retailer, should between 2 to 4%. And your product page to cart ratio, we see normally between 10 to 18%. And then checkout to order ratios, we'll call it cart abandonment. If 100,000 people view a cart, how many actually order is typically 50 to 60%. Those are some just high-level benchmarks. But you got to go back in your historical numbers, and hopefully your analytics is correct to see how have we been doing? How do we do last year versus this year? How do we do pre-redesign, post-redesign? How do we do pre-free shipping value proposition, post-free shipping value proposition, and how are you rendering that proposition? So it's going to be a lot of benchmarking your own internal numbers and doing your best and maybe talking to people in the industry to say, hey, what's kind of your conversion in this area? And you'll be surprised what people share. But that along with benchmarking competition, looking at new functionality with merchandising and how people are trying to solve problems. A key problem right now is the mobile path, right? People are discovering your brand on mobile, and you need to get them back into your shopping process when they're back at home on the desktop, when the order usually takes place. And like I said before, remarketing is a great way to do that. Incorporating email me my cart has worked really well for brands in our portfolio. By that, a very simple script. You have email me my cart in a mobile cart. They click it, they put their email, and then boom, the cart sends to their address. Now they can access it later via the desktop. That's another great way to try to bridge that session between mobile and desktop. But I'd start by, again, getting all of your progression points and then looking at your competition, looking at some market leaders, and trying to identify, okay, what is our functionality roadmap for the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, thank you so much for answering all these questions. Looks like that was the last of the questions that we had. Once again, I thank you, Craig, for taking out the time to educate our viewers about the ways to convert more orders. I'm sure our audiences must have had a lot of good takeaways that they will soon start implementing in their own little CRO projects. Once again, thank you everyone for joining us. Craig, any last parting words?
No, I just wish everybody the best. If you'd like to learn more about us, please visit us at www.trinityinsight.com, or feel free to send me an email at csmith@trinityinsight.com. Be happy to do a site review.
Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Until our next webinar, have a good day.
Bye-bye, everyone.